He would save villages and battle monsters by day, and drink, binge, and sleep with women through every night. But inside, he was hurt. He regretted leaving the woman he had loved most. He missed his girls and began to feel like a failure of a father. This regret drove him harder into drinking and debauchery. But that's not all. As the decades came and went, his health started to falter. He started feeling the effects of the disease living within him. He would have nightmares of a dark, tentacled creature growing within him, feeding off of him, wrapping itself around his bones and organs. Yes, whatever this was had made him stronger, but now the devil was coming to collect what he owed. His health was beginning to fail. Hello friends, welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I am the GM Philosopher. I am a full-time pro D&D game master and TTRPG content creator. I have been running TTRPG games for over 24 years at this point, and this is the channel where we empower game masters to run better games. I'm also the author of the Paid GM's Guidebook. This is the book that I wrote, 142 pages, basically documenting the steps I took, the processes I used to go from having 0 pro games to having 5 full pro games and going from just having it be a dream to being full-time income. If you have aspirations to want to be a professional game master and either create a side hustle business for yourself or maybe even go full-time, this is the book for you. Make sure to grab that if you're interested. Links in the description. And today, I'm going to walk you through how I create a character from inception and inspiration all the way through to the end. I'm going to show you how I do it when I'm a player. Listen, as game masters, it's good for us to be players also because this helps keep things fresh. I'm always trying to be in some kind of game. Now, recently, my Sunday night game I've been playing in, where I'm playing Grom, Izak, Lawful Evil, Minotaur, Bard, that game had to get put on hold because the game master had to take a small break from that game due to some life and scheduling things that are going to be coming down the pipe, which is very understandable. And thus, I found myself without a game to play in for the moment. I put a post in the GM Philosophy Discord in the Looking for Games channel. By the way, if you haven't joined the GM Philosophy Discord, make sure you join it. Link is in the description. We're over 600 GMs strong. And I basically said, hey, everyone, I'm looking for another game to play in. Drop your games here. Let me see what you got. I would love to find a game to become a player in. And boy, the community did not disappoint. Probably more than a dozen people either posted their games or sent me awesome links to their games and invited me. And I cannot express how thankful so many people were so hospitable in inviting me. I will say, though, that the one that I have decided to try out is my good friend Stuart's game. He's running a game at Sunday evening at nearly the same time slot as the game I was playing in, so that's going to work really well. And I decided to go ahead and give it a try. I have created the character for that, and that's what I'm going to walk you through. Basically, my process, I'm going to show you how I conceptualize the character, what I thought about. I'm just going to take you all through the process. So if you want to hear how I create characters as a game master who also loves to be a player, who loves to put creativity and immersive role play into my characters, well then, boom, I'm excited to walk you through it. So let's dive in. All right, guys. So here is basically the beginning of this. And this is a document I use to create the backstory and such. Now, the character's name is Anduin Storm. He is a human fighter. Here's kind of the image I came up with for him. Now, I'm going to basically talk about how I conceptualized this character first. So when I was conceptualizing this character, I had a theme, a story I kind of wanted to work on with this character. And I want to tell the story of an older adventurer whose kind of like glory days are behind him, and he has many regrets in the past. He kind of was a folk hero, sort of a rock star type figure who's very famous locally, is like a local celebrity. So he kind of had an almost, rise to fame, rock star type of lifestyle. But at the time, he just thought he was so much more important than he was. And now growing older, he's realized that he actually wasn't as cool as he thought he was. He regrets a lot of the choices he made. And so he's got this sort of, I'm in the later chapters of life. What am I going to do now? I kind of regret a lot of my past. He learned some things in his past. He developed some strength and some abilities, but at the same time, he made a lot of poor choices, right? And you're going to hear more about that in a moment. So, but I want to go deeper with this. I kind of want him to be focused around, strength. So he's like a fighter, but it's like he has like almost like, a super strong strength, like a toughness. And there's a reason for that. And I'm going to explain that in the backstory too. But then I also wanted him to have a disease that is slowly killing him. And I wanted that to be tied to his strength and his rise to fame. So it was kind of like part of what gave him his strength, but also it's a thing that is slowly killing him. So it's sort of like it's like a debilitating disease that's actually like a creature that's growing inside of him. And you're going to hear about this more in the backstory. But, so I wanted to tell the story of this character starting when he is 40. So he's 40 years old, which is about my age. And there's a lot of elements of me I put into my characters. So there are like pieces of me in this character that I am going to like role play through. And this is a lot of times how I create characters. I'll put little bits of my history, my personality, the things I'm thinking about into my characters, and then I'll role play through them. And so there's an element of me like, telling a story that's personal to me. There's also sometimes an element of me working through concepts or ideas in my mind. And so for this character, it's sort of like, it's at this later chapter of life because of the disease. He's sort of like aging and prematurely reaching a point where he's going to die. He knows he's going to die relatively soon. Every day, the disease grows more and more difficult for him to cope with. There are some days when he literally has trouble getting out of bed. So he's got this like chronic disease. That's he has like fever, chills. He'll throw up this like black ooze. So it's like he's very sick, but also he feels like a lot of his past was a regret. He had the makings of what could have been a hero, but he kind of used it in the wrong ways, never really becoming an actual hero. So what I want to role play is this is his final adventure, and he's out to kind of redeem himself to actually become a hero in his own eyes. But he's also battling the sickness and illness. So in a way, he's sicker than he's ever, maybe even weaker than he's ever been, but he still has some strength. He still has some formidability. So on one hand, he is out to try to go on one more adventure, i.e., the campaign he'll be in. But then he's trying to redeem his past and become a true hero for the right reasons this time. But also he's fighting an internal battle of he feels like the end of the road is growing closer and closer. He isn't sure he has what it takes anymore to actually become the hero he needs to be to redeem himself. And this disease is just encroaching in on him. And every day his health is failing a little more. So he's also wasting time trying to achieve this. And it's really becoming all he cares about is actually being a legitimate true hero. So that is sort of the theme and tone of this character. And I took a little bit of inspiration from some characters about this. I really like the story. So like Logan, the story of Wolverine, but the movie where he's older and he's actually sick and his abilities aren't working as much, and he's having a harder time. I really like that sort of theme, and I was inspired a bit by that theme. I was also inspired a bit by The Boys and Soldier Boy, who's kind of like the boys version of Captain America. So he's like got all this bravado, and he's kind of like a foolish hero in a way, right? So he's got the makings of what could be a great hero, but he just is he's just such a like a piece of crap, just like being mean to people, being a bully, making bad choices. It's just drugs, sex, and rock and roll kind of lifestyle. Doesn't have really many like values that come through to make him like a good character. So sort of blending those two concepts, I kind of envisioned this character. He might have been a little bit like Soldier Boy when he was younger and he was a folk hero, but now that he's older, looking back on that, he really regrets that, and so he's kind of trying to make amends. So now I almost picture him more like Ned Stark from Game of Thrones. He's kind of regretful. He's grown wise in his years of adventuring. He's probably done things that he reflects back on, and he's almost kind of a sad character who at one time was glorious. That's another kind of like a bit of inspiration I drew for this character. So that's where I usually start with these characters. Is I try to think, what story do I want to tell with the character, and then now I'm going to tell you his backstory. So we have Anduin Storm, human fighter. And then here's his shield. He has like an artifact shield. Let me make this a little bit smaller so you can see it a little better. I made this bigger so that's easier to see, but maybe too big. Okay. So he's got this, shield, the bulwark of the borrowed Titan. This is an artifact he's going to be getting at the start of the game, and it does quite a few things. I'll review his character sheet here in a minute so you can kind of see what it does, but it really fits in with the character and kind of makes him more like the type of character that I was wanting to play, and you're going to see how that kind of fits into his abilities and stuff. But he basically fights unarmed and with his shield. So he like punches and shield bashes. And then a big thing of his is grappling, and he like tries to throw enemies, push enemies, stuff like that. Now, as you know, building emotional resonance, building emotional buy-in into your campaigns is crucial and is a very important part of succeeding at being a good game master. Now, in this game, I'm already creating some buy-in for myself by creating a character I love. But of course, the game master has a lot that they can do to either help or hurt that experience. Now, I wrote a book all about this called The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery, Deep Philosophy, Insights, and Tactics for the Experienced GM. I've been running games for over 24 years, and I've definitely learned how to create campaigns that have my players wanting to come back week after week, getting emotionally bought into the campaign. Emotional resonance is so important for a campaign, and basically it describes the experience of being very emotionally invested in a game. And that's exactly what you as a game master want your players to be in your game. You want them to be emotionally invested. So grab this book for about the price of a cup of coffee. You can learn all of my deep secrets, tactics, philosophies, insights into how to actually make this happen in your game. 50 pages long, about the price of a cup of coffee. You can grab that. Links in the description. And with that being said, let's continue to talk about this character. Anyway, so as we scroll down here, I'm going to read you his story. Anduin Storm was born and raised in the country on a farm. Now, by the way, I wrote all this by hand. I did not use any AI for this. I love to kind of write these things out by hand because I want to really be invested in the story. I want to really tell the story. So as I'm reading this, keep in mind, it is written by hand, and I wrote it, in the span of about 20 minutes. So it's not super fancy, but here we go. Anduin Storm was born and raised in the country on a farm. He's got humble working class roots, but that didn't keep him from desiring greatness. His whole childhood, he relished the idea of being a hero, saving people from danger, protecting the innocent, and being admired and adored by all for his courage and heroism. He got his start being a folk hero as he neared adulthood. He left the family farm and began pursuing adventures. He also met the love of his life, his wife Elizabeth, and the two of them had two beautiful daughters, Jessica and Catherine. However, the adventuring life wasn't so good to Anduin. He struggled to keep up. He got beat up and suffered many losses and defeats. He almost died on several occasions, trying to protect his local village from hardship, defeat monsters, clear dungeons, etc. As it turned out, Anduin had all the courage and bravery in the world, but he lacked the strength. If he could just be stronger, hit harder, get tougher. And then one day he met a dark entity, a cloaked figure who approached him while he was out drinking at a tavern, nursing a swollen black eye and sore muscles after a particularly difficult beating he had taken from an owlbear. This entity offered him strength, the strength he needed to become a true folk hero, a legend. But it would come at a cost. There was a life form that this entity was creating, and it needed a place to gestate. It wouldn't be a big deal, he said. It would just gestate slowly, dormant within Anduin, and while it would give him the strength he desired, eventually, probably towards the end of his life, it would also end up killing him. But Anduin had heard enough. He knew that this was his destiny. This would give him exactly what he had been searching for. He made the deal right then and there, sealing it with a handshake. The next morning, the dark entity laid him on a metal table in his laboratory and put him to sleep. He woke up a day later. The dark entity was gone. Down his chest and stomach was a huge stitched wound. He had been opened up and something had apparently been placed inside. He was sore as hell, but he seemed to heal faster than ever. As it turned out, whatever was placed inside of him did make him stronger. He grew stronger by the day. He started punching harder, being able to lift more, and soon his adventures started turning around. He started defeating monsters, winning fights, and crushing his enemies. This new success turned him into a folk hero, the likes of which he never would have anticipated. He became a local celebrity. He would walk through the village with bravado in each step, as people would greet him, ask him for autographs, etc. But this all started to go to his head. He started enjoying the attention he was getting from the local ladies. He started staying out all night, partying, drinking, doing drugs, and he started to become prideful, and this started affecting his marriage. He and his wife started arguing. She eventually got fed up with his rock star type antics and ended up telling him that if he didn't stop, she would take their girls and leave. He called her bluff. He told her she would never be able to do better than him, that he could replace her in a second. He told her to go ahead and leave if she felt that way. He had things to do, people to save, more ladies to sleep with. And she did. She left him. He was sad, of course, but he muted his sorrow by cranking up the adventures, the booze, the drugs, and the women. He leaned into the folk hero journey and became more famous than ever. For years, his escapades took him far and wide, with all of the pleasures that life in the limelight could procure. He would save villages and battle monsters by day, and drink, binge, and sleep with women through every night. But inside, he was hurt. He regretted leaving the woman he had loved most. He missed his girls and began to feel like a failure of a father. This regret drove him harder into drinking and debauchery. But that's not all. As the decades came and went, his health started to falter. He started feeling the effects of the disease living within him. He would have nightmares of a dark, tentacled creature growing within him, feeding off of him, wrapping itself around his bones and organs. Yes, whatever this was had made him stronger. But now the devil was coming to collect what he owed. His health was beginning to fail. Soon he got to the point where he was so sick that adventuring wasn't really possible anymore. His fame began to die out. His riotous nights of partying slowly became replaced with quiet nights at home, alone. His dog, Gus, is now his only real companion. Some days he feels okay. He even feels like he might be able to go on an adventure again. But some days he feels so sick that he can do little more than lay in bed. He sometimes vomits black ooze, coughs, and suffers from fever and chills. But as he feels the end creeping near, he realizes he doesn't want it to end this way. He one day decides he's not proud of the path he's chosen. So he packs up his stuff, collects his adventuring gear, tells Gus that it's time to go for one more adventure, and sets out, intent on doing something that'll somehow bring him some peace of mind and solace from the mistakes of his past. That's where he eventually finds the greatest adventure of his life. And that's basically where the campaign story begins, right? He has this flaw. So here's his flaw. He's racked by an incurable, debilitating sickness that is slowly killing him. So once per long rest, he needs to roll on this curse affliction table. And so if he rolls a 1 through 4, the day is clear, the curse is quiet, he suffers no penalty. If he rolls a 5 or a 6, he gets 1 level of exhaustion. A 7 is 2 levels, an 8 is 3 levels, a 9 is 4 levels, and a 10 is 5 levels of exhaustion. So, some days he might be very sick, some days he may be fine. His personal goals and dreams, he always wanted to truly be a hero. This means he wants to actually do something notable that will make him truly deserving of the moniker of hero. In his past, he thought he was doing heroic deeds, but he was actually just serving himself. He was not doing big things to actually protect people and to serve the greater good. So this is kind of like his story. He used to do it for the fame and the glory, but now he wants to do it just to do a good thing. And he feels like this is his last chance to actually do a good thing. So he's trying to redeem himself through this final adventure. And then he has alignment, neutral good, and then skills and development. In this campaign, Stuart basically said he was going to have the characters, they could work on their skills and level them up. But this character really only cares about his unarmed combat. So I don't know if Stuart's going to let me level that up a little bit custom or not. But boom, that is the character concept. All right, now let's review the character sheet. I basically took standard array, made him basically strength and con, his, basic abilities. He's actually he's a human fighter champion subclass, so it's not really anything fancy. Athletics is his best skill. Definitely not a min-maxed character. Really good at strength saving throws and con, definitely. So, he does have a flail, but mostly his thing is he's going to use unarmed fighting style and then unarmed strikes. And then he's going to do, you get a feat to begin it. I took the feat Crusher because, it's like enhanced critical. It gives him a push, these types of things. Okay, now with that being said, he has a custom feat called Overwhelming Maneuver. When you force a creature to make a saving throw against one of your Titan maneuvers, you can impose a penalty on that saving throw equal to your proficiency bonus. And you can do that. You can do that twice. Let's see. When you force a creature to make a saving throw. So it looks like you can do that twice per long rest. That's really awesome. And then Relentless Pressure. Once per turn, when a creature succeeds on a saving throw against one of your Titan maneuvers, you can still move that creature 5 feet to an unoccupied space within your reach. This movement does not provoke opportunity attacks. So basically, I'm building this character on the idea that he's kind of super strong, he uses his brute strength to do things. So a lot of the character is based around grappling, throwing creatures, pushing creatures, and then doing damage with grapple. That's kind of what the character is based around. But I chose to make him a fighter instead of a monk because he's not like a martial artist. He's not really trained in unarmed combat. He just has learned to use his brute super strength to basically win fights. And so that's kind of the way I'm role-playing it. Now he has this artifact weapon, Bulwark of the Borrowed Titan. And I'm going to try to make this a little bigger so maybe you can see it a little better. Yeah, here we go. Bulwark of the Borrowed Titan is his shield. So it's an armor shield artifact. It has 2 charges. Um, it gives him a +3 to his armor class, and then it is a massive darkened shield veined with faint pulsing fractures, like something inside is trying to push outward. When gripped, the bearer's shadow thickens and moves a fraction too slow. Now, I haven't started the campaign yet, so I'm not 100% sure where like he got the shield. Or I think he's going to get it in the first session. So this is like an artifact that has something to do with the campaign. But the GM really awesome worked with me to kind of lean into with this item what my character wants to do. So here's what it does: resource Titan charges, right? So, and I think it has 2 charges every day. So basically, you can use charges to do things, right? So while wielding the shield, you gain a +1 to armor class. You may use the shield as a weapon. So it can deal 1d6 bludgeoning damage as a weapon, and it counts as a martial weapon. And then your unarmed strikes would deal 1d4 bludgeoning. Now, with that being said, I actually have unarmed, I have the unarmed combat skill, so actually my fists do a d6 anyway, but whatever. So here's some things you can do with it. When you hit with a shield attack, an unarmed strike, or a successful shove or grapple, you can spend a charge to do one of these things. You can shield break, which basically pushes the target 10 feet away, and then if they hit terrain, they fall prone. You can also grasp of weight. Target is disadvantaged to escape a grapple. Takes 1d4 damage at the start of your next turn, so you can spend a point to do that. You could do driving slam, which basically does a d6 extra damage. Strength save, where they go prone, so that's kind of like slamming them onto the ground. There's also strain of the vessel stuff. Each time you spend a Titan charge, you take 1 damage. If you reach 0, you don't fall unconscious immediately. Instead, you remain standing until the end of the turn, then you collapse normally. So you get unnatural resilience. While conscious, I'm reducing non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage by 2, which is really awesome. That fits into the theme of him kind of being tough, right? So Titan escalation. When you spend a Titan charge, you may choose to overdraw it, right? But then you get more strain. So, I don't know that I would use the overdraw very much. I'll tell you exactly what I'm going to use all my Titan charges for right here. For the Titan hurl. When grappling a creature, you can spend 1 charge, and then they make a strength save, or you can throw them 15 feet, and they'll take 1d8 damage, and they'll fall prone, right? And then if they succeed, I can still shove them 5 feet. That right there is definitely the ability I'm going to use this shield the most to do. So boom, that's kind of the artifact weapon this creature is getting to start with. This character gets to start with. Now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to drop a comment. Let me know what you think of this build, what you think of this, overall character. What do you think of basically the way I put him together? Do you feel like he's overpowered? Do you feel like he's going to suck? Do you like the story behind it? Is this anywhere similar to what you do when you create characters? I would love to hear what you think. Drop your comments. Let me know how you create characters. As game masters, do you enjoy creating characters as players too, or do you find it kind of boring? Do you not really like to put that much time into things like this? Personally, I love creating characters and being a player. I don't often get to be a player, so when I do, I really enjoy it, and I love telling the story, enjoying telling a story of my character, and I usually like to explore kind of a deeper theme. So boom, there you go. With that being said, that's going to be a wrap for this one, guys. Thank you so much for coming back to another episode of GM Philosophy. Empowering Game Masters run better games is the goal. Roll some D100s for me at your next game, guys. I will see you on the next one.